Caleb, let's get into receivers.
Oh, Wes. Okay, let's do it. Welcome, one and all. Episode 11. Welcome to your new life in a fantasy football world. Thank you so much for everyone to join. And big shout out. We hit over 200 followers on Twitter, so thank you to everyone checking us out on Twitter. What? That's a big deal for us. 200 people. I couldn't even name 200 people right now.
I think we just lost 15 of them when you said, what?
Well,
so
you just said it
now.
Again.
Dang it. That's 30.
That voice you hear is Tinkerbell's cousin, Theodore, Mr. Wes Bohr.
Thank you, Caleb. My favorite dwarf and my least favorite elf.
Yes.
If you aren't already, you can follow us on Twitter, like Caleb was saying, Life in AFFW, or Instagram. Any questions, send them our way, and we'll be thrilled to answer them for you on our podcast. But
yeah, man.
The only thing I can think of to do right now, Caleb, is either crap my pants or get into the news.
I've already done one of them, so let's crap my pants.
Oh. And now get into the news.
Okay. Oh, the news is there's some frightening things going on in this world. I don't know what's happening. First one I want to talk about is the whole Jets firing their GM. To me, I don't know, maybe not to you. I haven't really heard your dear opinion on it, but very odd timing for that move. You know, you went through the whole end of the season, the off-season free agency, the draft, and then you're like, all right, thanks for the help. Here's the door. Very weird. And I don't know. What do you think about it? What do you think this means for Bell? Because it all kind of seems to be surrounding him.
Yeah, this was kind of confusing, man. Like, they had him spend a crazy amount of money in free agency. They let him take care of the entire draft, and then they just let him go. You think you'd at least let him get into the season and see what these moves produce, but they didn't. And then, of course, Adam Gase is now taking over, and all those moves, I guess, especially some of the free agent moves, he did not agree with. He didn't want to spend all that money on C.J. Mosley. It is apparent he apparently didn't want to spend that money on Le'Veon Bell either, which, why you come out and say that, I think it's stupid. You're stuck with Bell. You're not going to be able to trade him. I heard someone say, the Jets would be willing to trade Bell for the right price. No one is going to trade for Bell. They didn't want to give him the contract you gave him. Why would they take on that contract plus give up assets? So they're stuck with Le'Veon Bell. I don't know why he doesn't like him, but I think it's a very messy situation. It's so Jets. They are trying their hardest to be the worst New York team right now, the most dysfunctional. They actually had a really good offseason until this, and it just totally threw everything into a whirlwind. And if I'm a player on that team, I don't even know what I'm thinking right now. Like, who's running this thing? My coach doesn't even want me here. It's just a mess, man. I don't know.
What I know about Gase, just being a Miami fan, is that he likes not only team players, but he likes people to fall in line. Just do what I tell you to do, and that's it. And, of course, Le'Veon Bell, he didn't show up for the voluntary workouts, which to me shouldn't be a problem, but, that's the kind of player that rubs Gase the wrong way, if you know what I mean.
He wants to be rubbed the right way.
He does, and Le'Veon Bell isn't doing it, but I happen to think Le'Veon Bell, and I think you do, is a phenomenal talent. I think he's going to be great on the team. I think they have a lot of great rookie players, and I think the GM did a phenomenal job for the Jets, and I don't even like the Jets. Sorry, guys. It's very weird.
I think just a real small side note about Le'Veon Bell not showing up. Come on, man. Like, you signed your big contract. You're saying how you're dedicated, to this team.
Yeah.
You need to get back in shape. Like, what's it hurt to just go to these things and show them you're committed? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why not? You had Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry there day one, teaming up, showing their support. And if you're the veteran player and you expect to have all this, this playing time, I agree. He should have been there, but we'll see what happens. I don't know if this moves Le'Veon Bell down any. We'll see how offseason plays out. This is one of those wait and see kind of things. And if Adam Gase says, "Oh, I really like this guy," and he's not talking about Le'Veon Bell, then he's going to plan on limiting some of his role, unfortunately. So.
Yeah.
I wanted to also mention a favorite of yours, maybe not a favorite, but somebody that you really like and would love to be successful. Darius Geis is expected to be a full participant coming training camp, which makes us think that he will be fully healthy come week 1 in a Redskins team and franchise that's really hurting right now, as they just lost Reuben Foster for the whole season, unfortunately, to an ACL tear. Does this give you some plus on Darius Geis as a mid-round grab?
It does not. Ever since I went on about my love affair with this guy, I've had a real change of heart. And it's not necessarily on Darius. You see, when I heard his recovery wasn't going as it should be, it was a little scary, a little discouraging. Then they re-signed Adrian Peterson. They also have Chris Thompson. In the draft, they used a 3rd-round pick on Bryce Love.
Yeah.
You said I would love to see this guy be successful. More so, I just would love to see this guy have an opportunity. And I feel like he is not going to be worth having. I hate to say this. I hope I'm wrong. He's not going to be worth drafting as high as he is right now because Peterson, Geis has not taken a meaningful snap in the NFL, really. You have Peterson, who's the veteran. You have Chris Thompson, your 3rd down back. You have Bryce Love, who's coming in. Where's Darius Geis fit in? I understand they have Case Keenum, so they're probably going to run the ball a lot. But, man, 4 running back rotation, that's fantasy. Bleh, that's pretty gross.
Yeah, he's never taken a snap in the NFL, unfortunately. He got injured early in the preseason last year. Even if he comes in healthy, you still don't know what you have. So I don't blame them for wanting to shore up. But to me, the Redskins have so many other places they have to tend to. They really could have kind of wait and seen what they had between him and Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson. Why they drafted another running back in number 3, that's definitely disheartening.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me at all. Like, they had a good third down back. They had a good veteran, and Adrian Peterson, and Darius Geis. You want to be the guy that gets 70% of the carries. Now you bring in this rookie that you spent a 3rd-round pick on. It doesn't make sense to me, but it's the Redskins, so whatever.
Yeah. Lastly, we don't know if this means anything, everybody, but for those of you who haven't seen it, Ezekiel Elliott was not arrested, but he was handcuffed. He was at an event, and he was intoxicated, and he struck a security guard. And, of course, it was caught on video. So I don't know if this is going to have any repercussions with the NFL, with their personal conduct policy, but it's something to keep keen eye on. If the worst happens, Mr. Bohr, and he's suspended 2 games, how far do you move him down your rankings for those 2 games he'll miss?
I think he's still 1st-rounder. And did you say 2 games?
At most. I don't see, if he was suspended, I don't think he'd be suspended any more than 2 games.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be suspended. But if he would get 2 games, he's still a 1st-rounder. I still think he's a top 5 pick. You just bite the bullet, and he might drop a spot or 2. If you are dead even with him and somebody else, that might be the tiebreaker. But, yeah, it's not a huge deal.
Almost create more value out of him. Like, if you suddenly can get him with a later pick.
Yeah, that's true. If he falls to 5 or 6, that'd be awesome for you.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's an idiot, though. I didn't see the video, but apparently you did, and you say he just sort of walks up to someone and hits him.
It looked like he just going up to the guy to say hi or something, and then he just, shoves him. I don't know if that's a thing. It's very firmly very firmly punch shoved him.
Ultimate punch.
That's it.
If I ever get in a fight with someone, I'm going to do the hot rod ultimate punch.
I feel like they won't know what to do with themselves. Like, they won't expect it, so they'll just kind of back off like, okay.
Did you just say ultimate punch?
I'm leaving now, but all right. Yeah. So
Yeah, he's a knucklehead, man. That's so annoying. Like, I don't know. Just stop hitting people, for God's sake.
Yeah,
like, you get paid to do it
team.
as a full-time job. Can't you just take a break in the off-season?
Yeah. Cowboys seem to have a lot of drama. Story came out today about Amari Cooper. They're nowhere close to getting a deal done on his contract. That apparently he wants way more money than they're prepared to pay.
Yeah, where does Amari Cooper get off for saying
crazy.
that in the first place? He almost got cut by the Raiders. Like, he was not cut, but the Raiders had him in no man's land. He probably wasn't getting re-signed there. The Cowboys give a first-round pick for him. They basically resurrect his career.
Yeah.
And now he's being a jerk to him.
I bet they're willing to pay him quite a bit, but
they got a lot of contracts coming up, man.
Yeah, Dak Prescott is probably going to be a big one for him.
Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
You got Jalen Smith.
Yep. And they just signed one of their linemen to a huge deal, so yeah, they have a lot coming.
DeMarcus Lawrence, yeah. They got that Byron Jones in the secondary. I mean, the Cowboys have really drafted well, and that's good, but this is where it gets hairy when you got to start paying them after those 4 years or whatever.
Yeah, can they really afford to keep everybody? So this might be one of those years that if they don't go all the way, they're going to start losing some players.
Well, Amari, this is his last year on the contract, right?
He only had a 1 year. He didn't sign a long-term deal with them after the trade.
Yeah.
So that's it for that. What do you want to get into now?
Oh, I don't know. Possibly a bag of Oreos. But I'll settle for our top 10 receivers.
Nah, I'd say we stop the podcast now and just eat Oreos. That sounds pretty good.
They're mega stuff, if anyone's interested. I didn't know about those things. And my pants are mega stuff. Sorry, that's inappropriate. But, I mean, it's really stuffed.
Mega stuffed with Oreos. Yeah. Everybody, mega stuffed with Oreos are his pants, please.
When I walk, just
a family show.
Crumbs of Oreos come down my leg pants.
He just loves mega stuffed Oreos.
Now, let me tell you something about Oreos.
Much.
I am a huge Oreo fan. I have not tried these. They have a lot of, like, a peppermint Oreo, caramel center Oreo, like all these weird Oreos. It's like, just stick to the basics, man. You can't beat a classic Oreo. The only way they improved it is by adding more cream to the middle.
Do you think if they added more cream and thickened the cookie, it would be good or bad?
No, you can't. You can't increase the ratios of both.
Okay.
The increase in cream, the double stuffed, or if you dare, the mega stuffed, really is better because the cookie ratio stays the same, the cookie amount. So I will say, if they go any further with the mega stuff, I think they're crossing the line they don't want to cross. But mega stuff, it pushes right up. It's very risky move, and it paid off big time tonight with a cup of milk.
Oh, what if you had like a single serving pack of Oreos? Let's say 4 Oreos, and it had like a cap on the top that as soon as you turn it, the Oreos drop into a vat of milk, like a little container of milk. It's like a single serving thing. And you open it, and then you have Oreos and just the right amount of milk for those Oreos.
So the milk comes with the Oreos?
Yeah, it's in the it'll be in the refrigerator second. And you open the bottle, the Oreos release, dip into the milk, get the milk. I just made $1 million on an idea. Get out of here.
Wait,
you're just jealous.
Do they drop into the milk, or do you dip them?
Nah, as soon as you open it, they drop into the milk to get the soak going, and then you just devour them.
How do you devour them? You've got to go pick them out?
It's a little container. We don't have to
helping
get complicated.
You with the
Let's
logistics
talk about
right
wide
now.
Receivers.
No. You want to throw an idea out like this? I just want to wrap it up real quick. Are you an Oreo guy, Caleb? I feel like you're not.
I do like Oreos. Yes.
Are you a dipper?
Yes, I'm a dipper.
Then you should know you got about 3 good seconds before that stuff starts dissolving, man.
You're right.
You drop it in a. You're onto something though. If we could
What if it's
thicken
a time
the
release?
if you could thicken or make the cookie more resistant to the milk, I don't know.
Maybe it's
You're
just a
onto
single
something.
serve container that you can dip the Oreos into. We'll
Okay.
figure this out. I'm just spitballing here, you know?
Yeah, if you guys don't hear an episode for a while, it's because we're in my basement with a chalkboard trying to figure this out.
Trying to figure it out. You know who's like an Oreo?
Careful.
Our no, our number one consensus wide receiver. Believe it or not, he's your one and my two. Don't get mad, everyone. DeAndre Hopkins falls as our consensus number one, and I'm happy for him to be here. Again, there are 3 wide receivers that I think could all be number one at the wide receiver, and there happen to be ranked 1, 2, and 3. But we'll give it to DeAndre Hopkins. A stud of a guy. Do you want to start out with him?
I can.
But you have to use his moniker. You have to use his nickname.
What's his nickname?
Nuke.
Oh, Nuke.
You don't
All
even
right.
know. You don't deserve to start with him.
I did know. I forgot about it. Leave me alone. I'm looking over my notes here. So I don't sound like an idiot, but you already ruined that for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopkins. I want to find an argument why he shouldn't be number one, but I can't. Last 2 seasons, only Julio Jones has had more yards. Michael Thomas is the only one who's had more catches than him, and no wide receiver has had more touchdowns or fantasy points than him in the past 2 seasons. He has Deshaun Watson. He's got a good quarterback, and he's been great with him, but he has shown he can put up decent stats with, I don't know, Brandon Weeden, Nathan Peterman. Like, this guy is a foolproof first-round wide receiver. He's definitely my number one overall. I would like to hear your argument later on why he shouldn't be, but I like him a lot. And I have never had him on my team, and I really want to change that this year because he's, like I said, he's done it with the worst quarterbacks. He's done it with now a really good quarterback. If he stays healthy, he's going to be definitely a very low-risk pick with this guy.
Yeah, I really do like DeAndre Hopkins, and probably the best thing about him is that since he was drafted, he's only missed 1 game. 1 single game in 2017. That's it. So if you're looking for somebody who's going to stay healthy and be on the field, he's your guy. His inconsistency could absolutely be attributed to quarterback play. You have 2015, his second best season, 192 targets, 111 receptions, 192 targets. Just wrap your head around that for a second. 192 targets. That's insane. 2016 came back 151 targets, only 78 receptions. Again, quarterback play plays a big deal. But then he had, like you said, back-to-back phenomenal seasons. Despite missing a game in 2017, ridiculous touchdown totals. Last year, his catch percentage was 70.6. 70.6% of his targets he caught, which is also insane. His yards per target were 9.6. Every time he was targeted, he averaged a point just about per target just on his yardage itself. So, absolutely a phenomenal player. Why he's not my number one is, for me, I think it's desperation on the part of who my number one is.
Oh.
And we'll get into that next, because our number 2, if you don't have anything else to say on DeAndre Hopkins right now,
I don't,
is Devontae Adams. Wes, you actually have him back at 3, and I have him at 1. And why do I have him at 1? Okay, so he does not have nearly the same track record as DeAndre Hopkins. It took him a while to get going. Even when Aaron Rodgers got injured, thankfully he's still the favorite target on that team. But what I see this year is kind of what I saw last year, is that the Packers were struggling. Aaron Rodgers was doing everything he could to win games, and Devontae Adams just feasted. for lack of a better term.
He beasted.
He beasted and feasted and all around treasted.
Yes.
I didn't carry it out that well.
Treasted.
Not that, DeAndre Hopkins can't do the same thing. DeAndre Hopkins is not as successful, I don't think. He's most successful when he's the only target. So when, unfortunately, Will Fuller goes down, which will probably happen, he gets more valuable in my mind. Will Fuller takes away a lot of touchdowns from him. But if for some reason Will Fuller stays healthy, I actually see DeAndre Hopkins' touchdowns going down. He's, 10 or less if Will Fuller was to stay healthy. They do have some good weapons on the team. Davante Adams, all of his teammates are very young. He is established as Aaron Rodgers' favorite target. And I think Aaron Rodgers is pissed off, and he is just going to throw the ball like a madman and do everything he can to win games, whether it works or not. And Davante Adams is going to be the sole owner of those targets.
If Will Fuller stays healthy.
That's what it all depends. This all depends on Will Fuller.
If Will Fuller stays healthy, yeah, that's a big if. If I didn't have bowel issues, I'd go to Taco Bell more.
If Will Fuller stays healthy, he may catch 30 touchdowns in a season.
Davante Adams, I like him. Don't get me wrong. He's definitely likes the end zone, which we like. He's had double-digit touchdowns the last 3 seasons. They didn't make any major additions to the receiver core in the draft. In fact, they let Randall Cobb walk, so they're putting full trust in Davante Adams, which is a big deal. Only reason I have him at number 3 and 2 other guys ahead of him is because his track record. Last year was his first year he broke 1,000 yards. Last year, since he's got drafted in 2014, he's only had 2 seasons where he played 16 games. Really, I like him a lot, but number 3 is still really good. I just, because of those few reasons, I have him at 3, not 2 or 1.
Yeah. Again, these top 3 guys, I wouldn't blame anybody for taking one over the other because
not at all. Yeah.
Yeah, they're ridiculously talented. We're literally splitting hairs here. And
we literally have hairs in our hand, and we're splitting them right now.
That's it. I barely have any hair left. I'm almost completely bald. There's literally only one reason why our number 3 is listed where he is for me. Only one that takes him away from the number 1 spot. Julio Jones,
yeah,
listed as your number 2, my number 3, our consensus number 3. You look at his stats. I mean, he's had 1,400 plus yards in the past 5 seasons, which is insane. At least 83 catches. His best season, 2015, he had 136. So his catch rate, 203 targets in that season. Again, insane. His targets regressed. They do have some more options on that team, but the main reason is his touchdowns. Okay, when you look at Davante Adams and DeAndre Hopkins, they are consistently in double-digit touchdowns, and we expect them to be there. Julio Jones came back last year after having a very poor 2017 with 3 touchdowns, and he had 8 touchdowns, which is great. But the difference between 8 and 13 touchdowns is actually a lot of points, even if you factor in yards. He only had 1 season back in 2012 where he had double-digit touchdowns. Other than that, it's been okay or really poor when it comes down to touchdown production. If he improved that this year, I have no doubt he's going to keep up his yardage. And if he has 11, 12 touchdowns, he'll be the number 1 receiver. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah, he is my number 2. I know the touchdown thing scares everybody. Heck, it scares me too.
It should.
Put touchdowns aside, which is not easy to do. 5 straight seasons with at least 83 catches, with at least 1,400 yards. Very consistent in those 2 departments. We were talking about Davante Adams. He had 13 touchdowns last year. And Julio, I think, only had 8.
Yep.
So 5 touchdown difference. That's a big. But at the end of the season, Davante Adams only had 4 more points than him in PPR. And why I'm saying that is Julio Jones, I feel like I had him last year, and I just feel like something kicked in. Once he started scoring touchdowns, I feel pretty confident in saying he's going to break the double-digit touchdowns this year. And if he does that, the yards are there, the receptions are there. They're always going to be there. So if he increases that touchdown production, which I think he will, he's going to be in that argument for the number one wide receiver in fantasy. So,
yeah,
that's all I got to say about that.
I can see that with Julio. I really do love Julio. I think he can keep up serious production, but again, we're splitting hairs. I do think we start to take a step down, even though our number 4 is a phenomenal player. It's on a team that has too many weapons, and we'll start getting into more of those. Michael Thomas is your number 5 and my number 4, but he comes in as our consensus 4. Why don't you start on Michael Thomas?
Why don't I? Michael Thomas. Very good wide receiver. 125 catches last year. Led the NFL. The way he started last year, man, we thought he was going to break some records. Like, he started out real hot.
Yeah.
Has a Hall of Fame quarterback, Drew Brees. That's definitely a plus. But if I got to talk bad about the guy, and I'm not going to talk bad about him, I'm just saying why I rank him a little lower than the other guys. I feel like the Saints are turning to a run-heavy team. It's the first time in a decade last year that Drew Brees didn't attempt 500 passes and he didn't top 4,000 yards. And that's, I feel like, why they're changing to he's, what is he, 40 years old or something? Like, he's stinking old, man.
Over that. I think he's closing in on 42, isn't he?
Is he?
I don't know.
No, he's 40 years old.
Okay.
Just looked it up. He's 40 years old. He's not a mobile quarterback. He has to stay in the pocket. So you're looking at quick passes and you're looking at a lot of running. That's why Alvin Kamara has so many receptions. They're just trying to preserve the guy. Michael Thomas is going to get his. He's going to get over 100 catches. He's going to have a good season. Not talking bad about him, but I feel like last year, once Mark Ingram came back and they had that 2-man punch in the backfield, that's when Michael Thomas, I mean, he still had some really good games, but he did not have the games he had the first couple weeks. So I feel like with Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara, I think he's going to end up where I put him, at number 5. I put him at 5. Our consensus is 4.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not that far off at 4, but if you look at the wide receiver core of the Saints right now, Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, Traquan Smith, Kirkwood, Carr, Cameron Meredith, Durrell, Cobbs, Butler, Harris, Grayson, Humphrey, Wright. And I know it's, we're still preseason right now, well, pre-preseason, but there are a lot of different people on that team, and that's just wide receivers, not to mention tight ends. They did bring in Jared Cook. Jared Cook is going to eat some targets. Michael Thomas, I don't expect him to have 125 receptions this year, but he did have an 85% catch rate last season, which is ridiculous. 85% of the targets that he was, sent resulted in a catch, and it was unbelievable. He's still a very good player. He's had over 1,000 yards in his first 3 seasons, and he continues to improve on that. 9 touchdowns last season. Definitely going to end up top 10, if not top 5 receiver. So I'm not mad if I'm going to get a guy like that, but he still comes in at 4. I do think the other 3 guys are going to be a lot better than him. Our next one, number 5, and I'll let you talk about him because he is ranked much higher for you. Odell Beckham. I have him back at 7. Wes, you have him up at 4. Why do you like Odell Beckham so much on the Browns?
Odell Beckham, man. He had 1,000 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. He's just one of the biggest athletic freaks in the NFL right now. Okay, he did all that in 12 games. He is a freak of nature, and he did this in a stagnant offense with an old, slow quarterback with Eli Manning. So you factor that in, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, on a terrible, stagnant offense. Now he goes to arguably the most exciting team in the NFL right now, with arguably the biggest up-and-coming quarterback in the NFL in Baker Mayfield. You got Baker Mayfield throwing him the ball in an offense where you're going to double Odell Beckham? Okay, fine. Jarvis Landry's going to be open. Or David Njoku. Or you got to keep an eye on Nick Chubb. Or Antonio Callaway. Like, you have so many weapons now that Odell Beckham's going to see probably more single coverage than he ever has in his entire career. The only thing that has me a tiny bit hesitant on this guy is in his 5 years, he's had one full season without injury. That's my main concern with him. Other than that, I think he's going to thrive in this offense, and I think Baker Mayfield's going to be a breath of fresh air for him.
See, the injury is a concern of mine, but my main worry is that there's a lot of really talented players on that team, and on the Giants, they did not have talent, for lack of a better term. So he's going on to a team where they have Jarvis Landry, like you said, Njoku. They have really capable running backs. They have, Callaway. They have a lot of players. So he may still be the number one, but it's going on to a team that has more weapons than the Saints have. And to me, that just means that, if he gets 90 to 100 catches, absolutely possible. He's only had 100 receptions one time in his career. He still finished fairly high, but I really think I'm a little more appropriate on my ranking of him back at 7. No offense to you, Wes.
Are you appropriate?
Number 4 just seems, it's just really high. It's hard for me to trust the guy.
So who are you?
Blonde hair.
I'm saying this. Well, good move. I'll say this, in Cleveland, yes, there's a lot of weapons there, and I think it's going to take some attention off of him. I don't think those weapons are transcendent enough to keep him from being the clear number one on that team and being a top 5, possibly top 3 wide receiver if he stays healthy. Jarvis Landry's really good, but he didn't even have 1,000 yards last year. Right. Antonio Callaway's really good, but he disappeared in games last year. I think there's an appropriate amount of weapons, but there's secondary weapons. You're not going to a team where you have, Odell Beckham's not going to the Steelers last year with Antonio. You're not going with 2 number ones. He is the clear number 1 there. Jarvis Landry's the clear number 2. Antonio Callaway, clear slot. You got your number 1 tight end, but they all know their roles, and Odell Beckham's role is the number 1 receiver.
Fair enough.
We'll see, though.
He's still a top 10. I mean, regardless. And, I don't see it being the same as quarterbacks were last year, where you have the top guy separate himself so much compared to everybody else. I think everyone is going to be really close. Our next guy, former love of yours, is Antonio Brown. You have him at 7. I have him at 6, ahead of Odell Beckham by a spot. And for me, it again comes down to his role on the team. I think that they don't have nearly the same talent on the Oakland Raiders as Antonio Brown. Unfortunately, we don't know. Yes, in his past 6 seasons, he has over 1,000 yards, as well as over 100 receptions. He has been, we've talked about it before, he could, give Jerry Rice a run for his money as the best receiver to have existed. And this will be a
blasphemy.
Real test. This will be a real test coming into this year to see how he performs with Derek Carr. I have him so high because I think he is that good, and I think Derek Carr is competent enough to get it in his general area, and Antonio Brown will come down with the ball, and they're going to rely on him. So I see him getting 150-plus targets, and I wouldn't be afraid to draft him personally because I think he's going to rock out on the Raiders. That's all. That's what I think. He's much better than Amari Cooper, in my opinion.
I don't think you're going to get any sort of an argument with that.
Excellent.
But I will say, yeah, like you're going over some of the stats. 6 straight seasons with 100 catches. Basically, those 6 seasons, his lowest receiving yard was 1,284. His touchdowns, he gets in the end zone. I mean, his lowest output in those 6 seasons, 3, 6, was 9, it looks like. 8 or 9. And everything else is over 10, 12, 13, 15. Last year he had 15 touchdowns. So why isn't he higher? Ben Roethlisberger. That's why he's not higher. Derek Carr and Ben Roethlisberger are completely different quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger, if you're a Steelers fan and you watch the game, some of Antonio Brown's big plays was because Roethlisberger hung in the pocket, ball at that time, shed some tacklers, and then Brown basically improv'd routes and will get open and get 15, 20. Derek Carr's not going to do that. Okay, Derek Carr wants it out of his hands, short passes. He's not going to buy himself time in the pocket. That's not who he is. Will Antonio Brown have a good year? He'll have a good year. A top 10? Maybe. Will he have something similar to what he's had in Pittsburgh? Absolutely not. He's not getting 15 touchdowns. I don't even think he's going to get over 100 receptions. He'll probably have over 1,000 yards, but temper your expectations with this guy. Not just as you go into Oakland. And you got to remember, the Steelers threw so much the last few years with Roethlisberger. The Raiders, not so much. They just used a first-round pick on Josh Jacobs. He's going to be a victim of his circumstances that he put himself into with that quarterback. And plus he's a jerk. Did you hear Roethlisberger apologize for all that went on? And he just tweeted he's like Two-Face.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, dude, can you just be a Raider and just learn that? Stop being a jerk. Yeah, Roethlisberger came out and he's like, things got a little heated and we usually could work our ways through it, but I feel bad about it and I apologize. And Antonio Brown just tweets Two-Face. Can you just stop? Someone take his Twitter away, man. Yeah, this guy is like what? Like a girlfriend you break up with, and she's like, she just is wants to tell everyone, oh yeah, I've never been better, Shut up. We all know that you're going to regret leaving Pittsburgh, Brown. Everyone knows that, and you're going to know it by week 3 when you're 0-3 and you have 2 catches a game and you want your production. I don't know. But yeah, back to what you were saying, Caleb. I think he's definitely should be drafted as a top 10 receiver.
Yeah, it's still Antonio Brown. Still going to be the number 1 on the team. Derek Carr has had a near MVP season before, so it's something that he could do again, as long as he's not scared to get injured. Number 7, the number 1 player on your team, Juju Smith-Schuster. You have him back at 8, and I'm much more aggressive at number 5. I understand the argument about how Antonio Brown took so much attention away, and now everything's focused on Juju Smith-Schuster. But when he broke away for those 97-yard touchdowns, I don't think that was merely just him not being attacked. He still had 166 targets last year. And anybody who's getting that kind of volume, and you take away Antonio Brown, who commanded as many targets as he did, and it wasn't far off, by the way, 168 targets. So yeah, you bring some guys in, you have some talent, but now you have 168 targets from another receiver that you're taking and you're spreading out to the rest of your team. I see Juju Smith-Schuster repeating his target count, and I have no problem with him repeating his yards, even if his actual receptions goes down and he's closer to 100 receptions. I still see him having over 1,300 yards and similar touchdown production. It's his 3rd year. He's getting better. He has a quarterback that loves to throw the ball and is good at throwing the ball. Yeah, he throws some interceptions, but Ben Roethlisberger can really pile up the yardage. I've said it before. I do think Ben Roethlisberger could throw for 5,000 yards again this season, even with the targets that he has. and it's got to go somewhere. So Juju's going to eat. That's what I got.
Juju's going to eat. Indeed. And like you said, he's probably going to get 100 receptions, similar yards, similar touchdowns, and I agree with that, Caleb. But that doesn't put him in the top 5 for me. I think those other receivers are going to do better. I agree. It will be similar. Honestly, if I could sum this up in a sentence, he will see increase in volume, but decrease in efficiency. And you saw that in the past with Antonio Brown with the Steelers. They'd force it in there. There's be some uncatchable balls. Like, he's going to get a lot more targets. He might not be as efficient with those targets as he was in the past. Well, in the past, his last 2 years. But he will definitely see an increase in volume. I just feel like he comes a little bit of a higher risk than some of these other players we're talking about. I like him a lot. I think he'll be really good. I just think the guys we've talked about so far are going to be better. That's all.
Fair enough. That's easy. Mike Evans, I'm not as big of a fan. He comes in at number 8. Wes, you have him all the way up at 6. I have him at 9. Tell us about Mike Evans.
Yeah, I just, D-Jax, gone. A-Hump, gone. Bruce Arians, he's there. And Bruce Arians is going to change that offense. Jameis Winston doesn't have Fitzpatrick replacing him every time he throws an interception. I just feel like Mike Evans, he's actually pretty consistent, even though sometimes he had that 1 year where he sort of disappeared. But he had a good year last year. He had 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns. The year before, he was kind of quiet. He barely had 1,000 yards. But I feel like with some of those other guys gone and him running opposite Chris Godwin, and like I said again, Bruce Arians showing up there and turning that offense into something that it probably is capable of being, I feel really good about Mike Evans. I feel like he's really underrated, and if they utilize him right, he's 6'5". He can go up and get anything. They just need to throw the ball to him more.
I think that's probably the problem, though. Like, even in 2016, he had 173 targets and only 96 receptions. I don't know if that was his problem or the quarterback's problem, but Jameis Winston is likely going to be the full-time quarterback. Can Jameis Winston get him the ball? Godwin, in the games that they really focused on Godwin, was really good at catching that ball, regardless of who was throwing it to him between Fitzpatrick or Winston. And so that his reception totals is what scares me, that, especially with Arians coming out and saying that Godwin could be his 100-catch-plus receiver, and Mike Evans, still expect him to do better than Godwin, but do I expect him to just destroy it in the stats? Unfortunately not. And this is just from history. I mean, we can't obviously see the future, but, if we could, I wouldn't be discussing fantasy football.
Oh, we'd be discussing it, all right.
I would be at the casinos right now.
That's true. I just think it's interesting. He had 4 more targets this year than last year, yet he had 500 more yards and 3 more touchdowns on those 4 extra targets.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
Was that Fitzpatrick? Was that him and Winston, finally getting to where they should be? I don't know. You can call this a gut feeling on my part. I like Mike Evans, and I like where he's headed with this offense. Like Chris Godwin, yes, you can be the 100-catch guy, but I think Mike Evans is going to be your 14-touchdown guy.
I like him better back at 8 than I do your 6, though, because if you could grab Mike Evans back at 8 and then on the turn get a lot more value, I like that better than grabbing him in a mid-round and losing a lot of the players behind him.
Yeah.
Personally. Anyway, that's my hope, but that's a fool's hope.
Very nice, very nice.
T.Y. Hilton, and I honestly wish I had T.Y. Hilton higher. I don't know why that I don't have T.Y. Hilton higher, because he's got Andrew Luck throwing to him, but he's kind of the in a similar circumstance as Mike Evans is that he will get some targets, but he doesn't have a very high reception count. He gets some valuable receptions, as in he's been averaging over 15 yards a reception for the past 5 years. Only 1 year that he didn't. In 2013, he had 13.2. His touchdowns are not very high. So Andrew Luck loves his tight ends, as we saw with Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron had 13 touchdowns last year, and that's a lot of touchdowns to take away from your wide receiver. They did draft Paris Campbell and some other players, so I'm not surprised that he's ranked this low in the top 10. But he's a really talented guy with a really good quarterback and a really great offensive line, so they're going to have the opportunity to pass a lot. This is huge value to me if you can get him in the back of, T.Y. Hilton you're not going to get in the first round, obviously, but if you can get him in the second round, third round, that's a lot of value to me as a number one receiver on the Colts team.
Interesting. You basically just said everything I was going to say. His touchdowns scare me. I need to reiterate with different words. He hasn't scored more than 6 touchdowns since 2014. He has a tendency to disappear. So I know Andrew Luck is a really good quarterback, but T.Y. Hilton isn't the healthiest guy. They brought in Devin Funchess. They drafted, what was his name? Paris Campbell out of Ohio State. And yeah, whenever they get in the red zone, T.Y. Hilton, he's your home run hitter. T.Y. Hilton isn't catching a lot of touchdowns within the 10-yard line. Andrew Luck likes his tight ends, and that unfortunately takes away from T.Y. Hilton's appeal. Yes, agreed. He has a lot of talent, but in that offense, he's going to be limited to a certain degree, especially with the touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's, unfortunately, I think he's good enough that if they really had to focus on him, he would do a lot better. It just, the health can be an issue. But you know what? I'm much more excited to talk about our number 10 because in consensuses as they go, I think we might have him higher. Consensi. That's the proper plural.
Yes.
I think we have him higher than almost anybody that I've seen. Adam Thielen actually comes in at number 10. Wes, you have him at 9. I have him at 10. Why do you love Adam Thielen that much?
What the heck is the matter with me? I know every time I talk about Adam Thielen, I almost get angry.
Dude,
why
I
is
can
he
almost
ranked?
feel your... I was going to say something I shouldn't say on the podcast.
You got to finish that sentence because it's really bad right now.
The erection.
Ay, Dios míos. Adam Thielen, man, last 2 years, 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards. Before that, they had touchdowns were an issue. He had 5 and 4. Last year, he went for 9. His last 2 years, he's totaled over 200 catches, 2,600 yards. Diggs, I think he's a blessing to play us alongside because he keeps it from Adam Thielen getting really concentrated on with double teams. He's an awesome route runner. The only thing I don't like about him is Mike Zimmer and how the last 3 games last year, they had 83 rushes and 82 passes. Mike Zimmer definitely wanted to turn that into a running game, which is great for Dalvin Cook, but we're not talking about Dalvin Cook. We're talking about Thielen. And I got a feeling he's going to be a top 10 receiver.
Say that again.
Is this on?
Yep.
I got a feeling that he's going to be a top 10 receiver this year.
Just making sure. I'm going to send the hit squad now.
Just stealing me out, Caleb. Currently punching myself in the crotch for that one.
It's just numb over the years.
For all the puns, I don't even feel anything anymore.
Yeah, he has.
I can't even feel anything down there.
Okay. I shouldn't have laughed at that. It's encouraging me.
You are. I'm thinking of anything I can say with feel.
He's had a really good catch percentage. I'll say that. He's had over 60% in his 5 years in the league. his first two seasons, he was unrecognized. He started 2 games, barely did anything, and then he started 2015 really picking up steam, or 2016, and ever since then he's been an awesome target, and they showed that by the big contract that they gave him. So I totally agree. Much more valuable to me than Stephon Diggs. I'm not saying he's that much better of a receiver, but he is much more valuable of a target for Kirk Cousins, and he's going to keep doing that. It remains to be seen what happens with their new offensive coordinator. Whenever he took over last year, Thielen's production did go down, and I don't remember the exact stat, but I heard like a stat like if he would have been on a 16-game pace on his second half of the season production, he would have finished as like the wide receiver 20, which is not great. So that's the only thing that scares me about him is what is this coordinator going to do? How is he going to use him? But he's still, he's way too valuable for the other players that are currently, for a lot of people, ranking behind him. Love Adam Thielen. I know you love Adam Thielen. You got a Thielen. Let's just keep it going.
Come up with your own thing, Caleb.
I'm sorry. There is nothing else with Thielen.
Yeah, and I think...
what's the ceiling on Thielen? No? Okay.
That wasn't bad. Yeah, like we were saying, we probably rank him higher than other people. I feel like if you can get him in the 3rd round, that's a heck of a value.
Yeah, that's kind of where you're going to get him to. So take Thielen over Diggs. It happened last year. Everybody was worried because wasn't it last year that Thielen was coming off of injury too? And people were drafting him behind Stephon Diggs, and then he, everybody knows 8 games in a row over 100 yards. That's crazy. So, hey, that's it for our top 10. We have DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, Odell Beckham, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Evans, T.Y. Hilton, and Adam Thielen, rounding out the top. Surprisingly, both of us had the same players in our top 10, just in different order. So
that was a little excitement for me and Caleb.
Just a tiny bit of excitement.
Just a little bit of a, ooh, that's cool.
Let's get into a couple more team evaluations. For all you Jaguar fans and Titan fans, get ready. We're about to disappoint you with how excited we are with these teams.
These 2 teams were handpicked by Caleb, so I'm very intrigued to hear what he has to say about them.
Handpicked at random to be a bit of a turkey. We're going to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to let you start this week.
Are you?
Yeah.
Cool.
So why don't you start with the Jacksonville Jaguars? What's going on with that team?
I am going to be brief with this. I'll just go over the elephant in the room. Nick Foles, up to $102 million contract. Crazy for Nick Foles. Everyone knows he performs in Philly and nowhere else, but Jacksonville was a desperate team, and Foles was really the only option out there. Chris Conley, maybe an underrated signing from Kansas City. They brought in there too. We'll see how he fits in the offense, but the team really, they're either going to sink or float depending on Nick Foles. If he can bring the magic from Philly to Jacksonville, you're looking at a playoff team for sure. If he does what he did when he got traded to St. Louis Rams, you're looking at a team picking in the top 10 again. Speaking of drafts, they had a really good draft, and they drafted Josh Allen, which I don't think anybody saw happening. Thank you, New York Giants. Then the guys that in a lot of mock drafts they had him taking at 7 fell to him in the 2nd round. Jawan Taylor, the tackle out of Florida, very nice pick. Josh Oliver, an athletic tight end, they got in the 3rd round. He can stretch the field. He can run down the seam. I feel like he can be Foles' friend like Ertz was in Philadelphia. Obviously not matching the production, but I think that's a name you might want to remember in rookie drafts or even maybe on the waiver wire in the middle of the year. Do me a favor, Caleb.
What?
DeFlippino. Is that how you say his name?
D Filipino? No, I'm just
God,
kidding.
I'm so white.
It's D Filippo.
D Filipino. So it is D Filipino?
No, D Filippo.
D Filippo?
There is no Pino in there. If you read the name,
I must be reading my scratch wrong. D
He
Filippo.
is D Filipino, I think.
Is he Filipinan?
As a
I'm just gonna shut up. So this guy,
yeah.
he got fired from Minnesota. When he was there, though, he was excellent in the passing game. That's when both Diggs and Thielen were hot. Kirk Cousins was serviceable. So Zimmerman wanted to run more. This guy, whatever his name is now in Jacksonville. So I'm very intrigued to see what he does with Nick Foles now, if they're going to become not a pass-first team, but they're going to give Nick Foles every chance to live up to that contract. Watch and avoid. Who are we going to watch? Who are we going to avoid? I want you, Caleb, to give me your take on the Jags before I say that.
Okay. I got to say, the reason why I picked these two teams for this week is because these two teams don't excite me as much as any other team in the league. I'm having a real hard time liking players on either of these teams. So for the Jags, obviously, Nick Foles is there, Leonard Fournette. Their wide receiver core, currently their number one listed on their depth chart is Marquise Lee. Then Dede Westbrook. And they have some players, but no wide receivers that you look at as a clear number one. They did get Jeff Swaim. He comes over from Dallas, as you said, Mr. Oliver. Nick Foles loves his tight ends, so I can see some value at the tight ends position between Jeff Swaim and Oliver. Really funny side note, and I don't know why it's funny, but Keenan McCardell is their wide receivers coach. I thought that was interesting.
Keenan McCardell. Cool.
And Tony Sperano, the late Tony Sperano, his son is actually a coach on that team, which is also interesting to me. But so where's the value on the team? It's really hard to say. Leonard Fournette, you want to say, is going to be a top-tier running back. But we know he has discipline issues. We know he has health issues at the same time. Alfred Blue is a backup. Thomas Rawls, Benny Cunningham, Armstead. It's not like they have a lot of talent behind Fournette, so it seems like they're putting all their cards on the table and saying Fournette is our guy. He does have a talent. He's a big back, so he's the most value to me. The only guy that is draft worthy on that team. Maybe Dede Westbrook, Marquise Lee, but to me, unfortunately for fantasy value, there's very little when it comes to the Jaguars. And that's what I have.
Yeah, you're right. It's pretty pathetic, but I'm going to tell you, guy to watch.
Don't call me pathetic again.
Quiet you. Dede Westbrook, the guy you just badmouthed, is the guy I'm telling you to keep an eye on. He can stretch the field. Nick Foles likes to air it out, as we saw in Philly. He is not afraid to throw the ball down the field, and Dede Westbrook fits the bill when it comes to that. Also, coach came out and basically said they didn't need to draft a receiver because of Westbrook's versatility. He can play inside, he can play outside, he can be all over the field. I think he's a good receiver. Again, it depends on Foles, but if, like you said, a lot of these players aren't even draftable. Maybe at the end of the draft, maybe on the waivers, keep an eye on Dede Westbrook, monitor him the first few weeks, but it's someone to keep an eye on. This is not the draft, it's just the watch part. So just watch him. Bring up a video and watch him.
Dede Westbrook is currently down ranked as my number 47 wide receiver. So that's the guy to watch on the Jaguars. Number 47 wide receiver.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Now, my avoid is the guy that you said is the only real draftable. That's Leonard Fournette. I'm not saying avoid him in the fantasy football drafts. I'm just saying maybe avoid where he's being taken. This guy is a lot. I like him because he's not shy of the end zone. But the more I think about him, the more he's pretty risky. He's never really averaged more than 4 yards a carry. That's really bad. For his career, he's averaged 3.7 yards. Last year, it was 3.3. He struggles with his health. Okay, we all know that. Last year, he played 8 games. The year before, he played 13 games. He can't stay healthy at a position where you're constantly getting knocked around, you're putting your foot in the ground and cutting. He's never really given us one solid fantasy football season. So I think he's ranked a little high for where he's at. So I would just avoid him from where he's being taken.
Right now, you'd have to get him in the 3rd round, ahead of Damian Williams, Keenan Allen, Devontae Freeman, Mark Ingram, Nick Chubb, Kerryon Johnson. Would you take him ahead of any of them?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe Nick Chubb?
That's the guy I was thinking about, but I don't know. Nick Chubb's at least going to give you a solid 8. I don't even know if Fournette's going to give you 8 because of his hammy.
It's nagging. That's
a
what
nagging
it is.
hammy.
It's almost as bad as the groin. As soon as you get that groin injury.
When you pull your groin, it's done.
Aye, my groin.
Aye, I pulled my groin.
No, that's bad. I pulled.
I don't know what voice that was. It's like German.
I have pulled my groin. Sorry, everyone.
Why did we turn into a German? 9, my groin. She's been pulled. Yep. I do terrible German accents. Go ahead.
So that's the Jaguars as a whole. You're taking a risk pretty much at any position, unfortunately, on the Jaguars. There's no sure, like, them getting solid production. If Leonard Fournette is the running back all year, you're going to get a good running back. You absolutely are. You saw that from just the touchdown production that he had last year. But if he's not, and he's not healthy, then you really can't count on anybody on that team, unfortunately. So let's move on.
Wait!
Okay, go ahead.
Over under.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
God almighty.
Oh,
that's what they're all waiting for.
What's
8.
The line on the Jaguars?
8, Mr. Prepared. Let me look. Yes,
Fine.
It's 8. They have the 3rd hardest schedule. I think this is an easy under for me.
Yeah, just because of who's on their team, it seems that they are a team on the decline, unfortunately, because they were so close there. But, yeah, I got to take the under with you on that. Sorry, there are disagreements.
Proceed.
All right. Tennessee Titans. All right. They're a team with players, and I think that's all that needs to be said. Listen, okay, I have some things to talk about with the Tennessee Titans. I do, more so than the Jacksonville Jaguars, because Derrick Henry, I see some people listing him as their RB2, like predicted RB2 on the season. They're not going to draft him that way, but they think that he could finish as the RB2. Marcus Mariota is obviously the starter. They signed Ryan Tannehill. I could actually see Tannehill starting some games this season, so don't draft the Titans quarterback. What I do like is a very deep sleeper rookie, Alex Barnes, that I happen to like in the offseason, was signed undrafted by the Titans, so he is on that team, and he's working his way up the roster. But Corey Davis, they did add Adam Humphries. They have a lot of receivers to look at and try out, but it just seems like a team that is trying to figure out who they are. I don't mind the coaching staff. Like, I like Mike Vrabel. I especially like their defensive coordinator, Dean Pease. I mean, everyone knows Dean Pease. But did you know that his
The Dean
son Matt
poops.
Pease
Oh.
as well? Yeah, his son Matt Pease, he's quality control, so he makes sure that the urine is flowing. That was more of a direct joke. Okay. I'm going to go back to it.
Yeah, for those that aren't following, he urinates. His last name is Pease.
That's the only reason I mentioned them as coaches. I thought it was funny.
That was funny as a poop joke, but
Yeah, Wes didn't give me his approval before to really mention it, but I did.
the pee jokes are such a... go ahead.
Wes, can you guess who I'm most curious about on this team, actually?
Ooh, maybe... I have two guys in mind right now.
Okay, all right. It's not the obvious one. So
Ooh.
let's... Who is it?
Dion Lewis?
No.
Ah.
I hate him. Sorry. Delaney Walker.
Oh, God, man, that escalated. Delaney Walker was the one. I thought he was the obvious one, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Derrick Henry was the obvious one.
No, you just talked about Derrick Henry.
So
You're mean to Dion Lewis, man. No, I hate him as a person and a human being.
Sorry, Dion Lewis. No, I truly love you as a person and a human being, but not as a player. Delaney Walker is who I'm most curious about. Like, he has been a very good tight end for a long time, and unfortunately, he got injured last year. I know he's getting older. I knew Jonnu Smith is there and a young, talented player, but he also was injured last year. So Delaney Smith he might be one of those deep sleeping tight ends to me that you can pick up on waivers after week 1 or week 2 when you realize he's healthy and get our tight end 1 value out of. Like he's very good. No matter what quarterback has played in their on their team, he's always performed really well. So Delaney Walker, I'm honestly watching almost more than anybody else on that team because there's not a ton of value anywhere else. Corey Davis is very difficult, but I'm going to let you talk about them now because it's frustrating almost talking about them.
I don't want to talk about him either, but I will.
Why not?
Okay, Tennessee Titans. Big pickups this year, man. Adam Humphries, very nice. I think one of the major underrated moves the Titans made was trading for Ryan Tannehill. I think he has a good shot, like you said, of playing a few games this year and not because of injury to Mariota. Let's go to the draft. Two noteworthy picks. Jeffrey Simmons, who was a top 5 pick if he wouldn't have hurt himself. He will definitely improve that defense next year. And A.J. Brown, a possible first-round pick falling to them in the second, is a great pickup if they had a serviceable quarterback. Mike Vrabel doing a pretty decent job, especially on the defense. He had the third least amount of points given up last year with 18.6. But like you said, I'm looking at this receiving core and tight end. You got Delaney Walker, A.J. Brown, Adam Humphries, Corey Davis. Like, everything's in place, man. It's just missing one piece of the puzzle, and it's the biggest piece, and that's your quarterback. And it's unfortunate because I think they got a lot of talent on the defense and the offense. It's just they're waiting for someone to know how to throw the ball. And I was a big Marcus Mariota fan. Oh, just Marcus Mariota, the most he's ever thrown for is 3,400 yards. Ryan Tannehill has thrown over 4,000 yards twice in his career, and they're in consecutive years. I'm just trying to segue into my watch and avoid. My watch is Corey Davis if Ryan Tannehill can get in there. I feel like he can unlock a lot of the potential on that offense if he can just get his A in there.
Right.
I mean, you know what you have with Marcus
Mariota's never played 16 games in a season.
No. And it's not just that. You know what you have with him, man. He's not good.
Yeah, it's not turned out well. And
Corey Davis, man, his physical traits are off the charts. He's a really good receiver. They used to, I think it was a top 5 pick on him. And you got Adam Humphries, who proved in Tampa Bay he's a really good receiver. A.J. Brown had a lot of skill coming out of, he was not the most hyped on his team, but he's the best receiver on Ole Miss. You got, like you said, a Delaney Walker, a proven tight end. I feel like they need to sit Mariota. And if the fantasy gods are smiling on this team, Mariota starts the season on the bench. I don't know what more they need to see from this guy to sit him down. He's just had really just definition of mediocre. My avoid, the obvious, Derrick Henry. Someone that everyone's getting real excited about just because of a couple games last year, even though he's been in the league for 3 years. He barely catches 10 balls a year. There's not much exciting about him. I know some people are, like you said, think he's going to be a number 2. He was the definition of touchdown-dependent kind of guy. He would get you a touchdown with 10 yards. Like, I don't think he's worth what some people think he is. So I'd avoid that cat. And since you like to avoid the over and under, Caleb, I'm going to go right into it.
Go ahead.
8 wins again, right on like the Jacksonville Jaguars. 9th hardest schedule. I don't know how much that means, but I say under again just because of their whole quarterback mess.
I agree, and I think it's because the other 2 teams, the Texans and the Colts in the division, will perform better than both of these teams. For Corey Davis, it's almost sad. It's one of those players you feel like his talent is being wasted. Between just them getting him in the ball in general. I mean, last year he had 4 touchdowns. His first year he had no touchdowns. For the player, they did draft him 5th overall in the 2017 draft. So we'll see going into year 3 how he does. I do think a lot depends on Tannehill getting in there, but Tannehill also has trouble being healthy. So, we'll see what happens. It's not a good scene. Maybe I wanted to do these 2 teams because I wanted to get them out of the way, so we didn't have to talk about them again.
Yeah, if you wanted to do these to find some light at the end of the tunnel, I feel like we're both just more depressed about these teams than when we first started.
That's it. I think I shed a tear a minute ago.
Yeah, I don't see any of these players on either of these teams really being on my squad this year.
No. Derrick Henry's intriguing, but as you said, he's going into his 4th year now. And it was for 5 games that he really did anything, and it was only 2 of those that he was really good. Every player is bound to have that really good game every now and then. Right?
He's about as intriguing as a colonoscopy.
Well, I love colonoscopies.
See, that's why you're intrigued by him.
That's true. I'm gonna see myself out. Thank you, everybody. Hey, guess what? We went on way longer than you thought.
God almighty. I don't know what to cut out. Let's just cut out everything other than the intro and the outro.
This is what happens when you don't have a producer waving to you and saying, hey, move it on, buds. But yeah, we just talk too much. That's all it is. Hey, listen, let's just wrap this up. Thank you for everybody that has been following us on Twitter. We've reached over 200 followers on Twitter. And we're looking forward to the season. We're looking forward to a lot more people being able to reach us, sending us some questions, and continuing to work through these NFL teams to see who we really, 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 really like, because we really didn't like the teams that we had today. And no offense to Titans fans or Jaguars fans. You just happen to not have a lot of talent this year. I'm sorry.
I feel like both of them are just 1 or 2 players. Like Jacksonville, great defense, man. Offense on the Titans, they just need a quarterback. Like I could easily see them, either team, making the playoffs. It's just, as the thing stands right now, not so good.
It's a lot of blah.
It's a lot of blah.
That's it.
Okay, let's shut up and end this thing, because I got a feeling and we've gone on too long.
That was stupid. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Again, Life in a Fantasy Football World, number 11, done. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I am Caleb Cartwright, and I've been enjoying my time depressing Mr. Wes. anything you want to take us out on? Oh, why would you fart in my face, Rick?
I don't know what to say to that.
All right, thanks everybody.